I learned 3 powerful lessons after UFC 300 this weekend. The first of which is that it's never a good idea to underestimate what Max Holloway is capable of. That guy is truly on a different level when it comes to mental fortitude, to toughness, and to the ability to shine on the big stage. So congrats to him for everything he accomplished and for shutting down all of his doubters. The second lesson I learned is it's probably never a good idea to pick against Alex Pereira when you know he's going to be having a stand-up fight. Can he be beaten there? Yes, he can. Has he been beaten there? Yes, he has. We all saw it when Israel Adesanya knocked him out. But when it comes to his mental game and the way that knockout didn't seem to affect him in the slightest, he's simply on a different level than so many of these other guys. And finally, the third lesson that I learned is that I personally do not like the taste of humbleberry pie, and unfortunately, I had to eat a lot of it after this weekend. So with all that said, I want to go over a variety of different things in this video. And as always, everything and every topic is segmented down in the progress bar if you want to jump around. But just to give you a quick preview, I want to cover the 2 videos that I put up prior to the event that both perhaps look like major failures on my part on the surface, but weren't necessarily if you paid attention to everything that I actually said in the videos. I'm also going to cover how I did very well with my bets, even though in the BMF match, it turned out almost exactly the opposite of what I thought would happen. And yes, I'm going to tackle head on the video I did picking Jamahal Hill over Alex Pereira, because there is quite a bit more to that story, and I also want to tell you how I ended up losing no money on that fight. But let me start by saying this about picking fights. It is nothing more than educated guessing, and the further you try to go into the details of all of it, with things like what round something's going to happen and what way it's going to end, you're only increasing your chances of being wrong. And I don't care if you are the best fight picker in the world, when you're dealing in a game of inches with the very best athletes, it is inevitable that you're going to get a lot of different things wrong over time. So I never write somebody off if they get things wrong, as long as they provide good analysis and their reasoning for the picks that they had. And that's exactly what I try to do in my videos. Even though I really don't like to do direct picks the way I did in these last 2 videos, I much more prefer to do a balanced sort of analysis and then give you what I think are the probabilities of different outcomes. So with that out of the way, now I want to review the 2 videos that I did regarding the BMF fight and the main event. And while I'm going through that, I'll just touch on the fight itself. So starting with the Max Holloway-Justin Gaethje fight, I mean, what else can you say other than wow? It was an incredible fight. It was an unbelievable outcome. Max Holloway proved so many people wrong, including myself, and I have absolutely no shame admitting that. He just looked as sharp as ever from the opening bell to the closing second of the fight. And one of the things that stood out to me relative to his past fights was his eyes and the way he was just so focused on Justin the entire time. But Max simply could not have had a better performance, and if he had not already cemented his legacy, he definitely did it that night. But as it relates to the video I made about it, there was a lot of nuance with regards to where I was right and where I was wrong. My general prediction of Justin dominating Max and coming out with less damage was obviously incorrect. It was actually the opposite. But if you were to look at the breakdown I did for each of them and the things that I thought were their strengths, their weaknesses, and their keys to victory, I think a lot of the stuff that I said in there matched up pretty well with the game plan that Max ended up using. But having watched the UFC for almost 30 years, I can tell you that I never look at a fight as a sure thing. Even when it comes to my high conviction picks, I always assume the other person can win, and I like to make contingencies in the event that that does happen. So the most important part of that video, if you had watched it, was the part where I talked about the final prediction and the bets that I liked. And I think what I said in that section was pretty spot on accurate. Now, the bet that I liked the most for Justin was him by decision, because it paid 2.5 almost to 1. And obviously that part didn't work out, but I also talked about my hedge bets on Max, because I was pretty confident that if Max was going to win, it was probably going to happen in round 4 or round 5. And in the video, I showed you the betting lines for those picks. And in round 4, it was 45 to 1, and in round 5, it was 50 to 1. So just to give you a basic math, simple example of how this could have worked out, let's assume that you followed the same exact bets that I talked about in the video, and you put $100 on Justin Gaethje by decision, which would have paid you $240. And then to protect the $100, you take $5 and you put it on Max in round 4, and $5 on Max in round 5. Now, obviously, we know that he won in round 5, so that round 5 bet would have paid you 50 to 1 or $250. So if you minus out the fact that you spent $100 on the decision bet and $5 on the round 4 bet, and you take that total of $105 and you minus it from the $250 that you won in round 5, you obviously walked away with $145. So in my case, even though my overall thesis of how this fight was going to go was incorrect, because my betting strategy was built on the basis of what might happen if I was wrong, I still ended up doing exceptionally well. Now, when it comes to my video on the fight between Alex Pereira and Jamahal Hill, that was a completely different animal altogether. Whereas my thoughts on Justin Gaethje were what I would consider high conviction, my expectation of Jamahal Hill winning was far lower in conviction. And I actually went back and forth with myself about whether or not I wanted to make the video about Jamahal Hill winning or about Alex Pereira winning, because my conviction level on it aligned pretty much where the odds makers were at about even. I started with the idea of doing it on Jamahal, and I recorded all the strengths and weaknesses sections and all the keys to victory sections, and then I almost went back and changed the entire opener over to Alex. But in the end, I decided not to do that, to stick with Jamahal and to go ahead and make that case, and obviously it didn't work out for him or me, but that's how it goes sometimes when you make picks. Now, make no mistake, I'm not trying to downplay my pick or get myself off the hook. I definitely still believe that a prime-level Jamahal Hill could do a lot better against Alex than he did on Saturday. And if you do watch all the sections of that video, not only will you see that I was very fair in breaking them both down, but you'll also see that at no point did I say Jamahal Hill was going to dominate Alex. Now, when it came to the betting discussion in that video, I covered a lot of the same ideas that I did with Max and Justin. But because that video was getting a little bit longer, I sort of rushed through that section a bit, and I did not include all the different things that I liked. But like I said in the opening part of this video, I did not lose a dime betting on this fight. And the exact way that I did that was by getting lucky. When I pulled the odds up to make that video, Jamahal Hill had shifted over to being a slight favorite, and he had moved there from being a slight underdog. So I decided that I was going to wait a little bit and see if he shifted back into the underdog status before I placed the bets that I wanted to do. And that did happen, but by the time I looked again, I was traveling out of state, and my betting account couldn't verify that I was in my home state, so it wouldn't let me place any bets. So I pretty much just ended up not being able to place any bets at all, several of which would have been losers, but not all of them. So in the end, that part worked out just fine, but it was a bad pick. But in the future, I'm going to go back to sharing what my conviction levels are when I pick a fight or an outcome. And I will likely go back to talking about things in terms of probabilities, much like I did in a lot of my earlier videos. But like I said, you are always going to have winners and losers when you're in the game of picking fights. So that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. Also, subscribe to the channel for more in the future. I'm definitely going to be out for redemption and change a few things up, so hopefully you'll like what I come up with. And if you got a laugh out of the thumbnail, be sure to let me know down in the comments. As always, I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a great rest of your day and week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.